Everyone, hello everyone, this is Chase Pounds. If you saw my previous video, I was in Charleston, South Carolina, in my hotel room. But now I'm back home in St. Louis, Missouri. Now I'm pretty late, um, showing, posting this, I guess, doing this video of my souvenirs and talking about my actual trip in Charleston itself. So I've been I was pretty busy and busy the last couple of weeks with the election and taking care of my grandmother who's been pretty ill lately, and having to go back and forth trying to take care of her and help her out a little bit. And so that's kind of why I've been behind with my channel. There's other topics I want to discuss about before the year is up and for the holidays up. And but in this video, I'm going to be discussing a little bit about the souvenirs in the trip itself. As I said, this trip was funded by my church, local church, and every year they planned. There's a committee in my church that plans for events such as traveling, other special occasions, and planning trips such as to out of state trips, including this one to Charleston, South Carolina. This was also the same committee that funded the DC trip, that I went to last year in Washington D.C. As I posted had filmed a video where I was in my hotel in Washington D.C. Now this trip that I went on was to Charleston, South Carolina, which is a place my mother has always wanted to visit after reading some audiobooks that it was an audiobook. I think it was one year, either 2021. She read a Daniel Steele book. I think it was an audiobook she read where it referenced Charleston, South Carolina, and in the beautiful islands, which are supposed to be which were non-fiction areas of Charleston, South Carolina, known as Sullivan's Island. And from that point, she always wanted to go live in Charleston. And of course, when a church was funding a trip to Charleston, South Carolina, of course she wanted to go. So I decided to also go with her. And of course, I also want the experiencing of traveling and seeing other places that I've never been to, besides just exploring my own areas around St. Louis. Of course, I try to, I guess, expose myself to other cities, and I'm getting out more, and I'm experiencing experiencing getting out more and seeing other places. I guess also observing the culture and history, learn about the culture and history, as well as trying the nice regional cuisines, and that's something I've been doing in recent years, is traveling a little bit more. This is about my fourth trip. I went out of state, fourth time going out of state. The first was Nashville in 2022. Second was DC. Third was Chicago. Also this year I went to Chicago for the first time. This time was with my youth church, with the young adults youth church. And this one was my fourth trip, was to Charleston. So I've been getting around a little bit more, again, trying to see other places and expose myself to other, I guess, other cities and learn about the cultures that exist in the country, and as well as the world, but mostly within the United States. And we went to on our trip. We had actually stopped by Nashville. The first place I had visited was, we stopped in Nashville. Nashville for lunch, which was at the soul food restaurant called Sweat's. It's been around since 1954. Though the food was good though I didn't like the I didn't think that the restaurant was very cleanly, but I'm not gonna really spend much time talking about that. But then we stopped at Athens, Georgia, at a hotel before heading to our main stop at our main destination to Charleston, South Carolina, and we spent the night at the Marriott Fairfield Hotel. Both hotels were the Fairfield Marriott, and some in the places we visited while we was in Charleston was the aquarium. What's the city's aquarium, National Aquarium, and the African American History Museum. Third was the tea plantation, which isn't a tea orchard. It's more of an orchard. It's a plantation, but not what you're thinking in the sense of plantation. Plantation is like a slave plantation. It wasn't like that. It was like a place that processes tea, which I get more into that. And we visited the state capital of South Carolina. That's what I think. Those were some of the 4 places we visited on the attraction we visited on the trip. And first with the National Aquarium, it was very nice. The aquarium, going to the aquarium was very nice, and also seeing the waterfront, which I not used to seeing that much water since I'm in St. Louis and live near only by the river. That's mostly much water as I've seen is the river. And though we also have an aquarium in my hometown as well, but in my opinion, I think my aquarium was a little bit bigger than this one. So it was both nice. And I saw got nice decent pictures of stingrays and sharks and turtles, and I had the bald upstairs. I had the bald eagle and sea turtles. And after that, we I had lunch at a restaurant. One of the a Charleston signature and kind of historic restaurants, staple of Charleston. I forget the name of the seafood restaurant. It's been around since the 1890s, and a lot of notable celebrities have eaten there, including Lindsay Wagner, which actually sat at the table where she ate in the restaurant. And most of the tables, it had like a nameplate of all the celebrities that sat at the exact table in the exact spot, and it has their picture frames on the walls. And I took a lot of pictures of the people: Oprah Winfrey, Samuel Jackson, Lindsay Wagner, other such celebrities, Hulk Hogan, politicians, Sarah Jessica Parker, Cyndi Lauper. I think they all ate at that restaurant. So a lot of famous people ate there. And for that lunch, I had a lobster roll. It was the first time having a lobster roll. It was very good. And we also had a cruise where we toured the city, the port, the historic river port, the historic port of Charleston, areas such as the Fort Sumter, Sullivan's Islands, which is what was referenced in the audiobooks my mother read that made her interested in the city of Charleston itself. And it was some historical sites, including we passed by the port where where the African American church, which that's where we visit the next day, and the same port where they would bring in a lot of the slaves. Was actually more of a market, a slave market. A lot of Charleston's black slaves, part of the slave trade. And the weather was nice that day. Later on today, we ate at another restaurant called Page and Over, which I had seafood with fried shrimp and French fries and dessert banana pudding. And the next day, we visited the African American History Museum. It wasn't big as the one as I went to in D.C., which I went to that one, and I never finished seeing the whole building because it was so big and only had a short amount of time. And this is the church. This is the the Black History Museum. And it talks about both the local history of Charleston and Black history in Charleston, including slavery in Charleston and the Black residents of Charleston. Just so much the history of Black history of Charleston, as well as national history in general of the United States. It talks about African American history from the slave trade to Reconstruction, the turn of the century, even references the Black Wall Street massacres, and probably going into the Civil Rights era. Though I didn't really finish the even with this museum, I didn't finish it, and it was only there for a short period of time. Unfortunately, one thing I would like to have was more time to see the museum at my own pace. But then again, this was a scheduled event, and we had to go. Everything was on time, which ironically, not everything was completely on time. At times, so it was kind of going by colored people. It was more later than compared to the DC trip. It seemed like it was more rigidly on time compared to this trip. It seemed like this one was more on colored people's time though. But and I have probably knowledge about the African American History Museum from Today's Show. Craig Melvin had toured the museum, and it also also has like a special area that also does your ancestry, does your genealogy, your ancestry, learning of tracing your ancestry back, kind of like a ancestry.com, and it traces your lineage going back to the slave trade, or whatever your history is for Black Americans. And this was built symbolically in the port area, the very area where the slaves would once have been brought into Charleston, the port, which is just unfortunately legacy and history of Charleston, and it seems very fitting, symbolically fitting, to have the museum where the injustice had been done, where this would mark the start start of a new life for many enslaved Africans. And then after after we were done touring the museum, we went kind of the same areas we did yes as the day before in the Market Square area of Charleston, which they have like a which is known as the market area. It's a long strip of like businesses, little shops for tourists mostly. I guess for like tourism or just shopping in general. But the local people in Charleston is a very historical market. Been around since the 19th century. And that's where I picked up a few souvenirs. Was in this market, which one of these was. And this is the thing I like to do when I visit I should say it's kind of a I guess like a collection I started. It's like collecting models of carvings of the cities. And I did this with DC. It started with DC, and I did it with Chicago, and now with Charleston, I plan on making a collection where every place I travel to, I plan on of buying a souvenir of like a carved model of the landmark city. This is kind of similar to what my dad does. Every time we travel, we always buy him my dad a pyramid like pyramid figures or pyramid carvings, or just bring him home like a triangle shaped pyramid, which kind of represents Egyptian culture. And he's also kind of a Illuminati fanatic, but it really just, it's a collection. He always has collection from every place we traveled. We always stop to get him a pyramid. So I'm starting to do my own collection based off that, where I'm going to get a carving or a model of the cities I visited. And this is like a model of the row houses. This is what the houses would look like in Charleston. They're all different colors. They're powdered blue, pink, yellow, green, purple. That's kind of like the I guess like what represents Charleston, along with the palm trees. And it represents this a lot of the culture is inspired by Caribbean culture. Barbados, it makes you feel like you're in the Caribbean, like you're in Florida. Like Florida, that's what it kind of put in mind of when going through Charleston. And Charleston, when we also had like a tour guide who drove us we drove by a bus. That's actually how we traveled, was by bus, by a charter bus. And we stopped at the visitor center in Charleston, and a lady had planned a tour. To give us a historical tour of Charleston, talk about the history and the culture of Charleston, especially Black history and Black history. And there's some historical. It talked about the I guess again the slave trade, and post-emancipation, as well as talks about white. It also talks about how Charleston experienced a lot of white flight and gentrification in the black neighborhoods, where many neighborhoods were at one point white, but blacks came in. Blacks moved in as whites moved out. But then, I guess later at some point, white people came back and lived in the whites start moving back into the black neighborhoods, pushing the black people out. So it's kind of reverse of white flight. White flight, and where blacks are usually, I guess, removed or forced out of their neighborhoods. And this is something that's happening not just in Charleston, but all over the United States, including even Harlem. Harlem's becoming more of white residents in some cases. Unfortunately, but other history I learned that I didn't know about was Charleston in 1886 had an earthquake that damaged most of the city, and that kind of had an impact on the system of building and style of building for Charleston. Many of the homes in Charleston, such as many of the homes would have I'm not sure how to pronounce it, like a thing that keeps the buildings in place, like a little emblem in the I guess in the design of the building. It's like a little thing that keeps the building sturdy from earthquakes, make them earthquake proof. Which is interesting that wasn't done in other places, such as St. Louis, right? My hometown, St. Louis, which is also prone to earthquakes. We live near the New Madrid fault line, or out of California with the San Andreas fault. California has had a history of earthquake. Most infamous that I'm familiar with is the 1906 San Francisco earthquake that I'm mostly familiar with. Yeah, I didn't know Charleston had earthquakes. I thought they're more known for hurricanes and storms more than earthquakes. Very interesting learning about that. And we also passed by the historic Black AME Church, where in 2015 a white gunman shot 9 black church members who were attending Bible studying on June 19th, which is also known as Juneteenth, representing the emancipation of all the emancipation of the slaves, including Galveston, Texas. And also, which I remember that making news in 2015. And that's how my dad had the first prior knowledge of Juneteenth, was from that incident. He had never heard of it previously, so that becomes synonymous with Juneteenth. For some people in my family, I guess my dad, particularly because again, that's where he first heard of Juneteenth. I never imagined that I actually get to go by the church in person. And I think like the next day, we also visited a historic tea orchard or plantation, which, as I mentioned before, is not a slave plantation, but it's more like a tea orchard, like a tea farm where they grow tea. That's actually where we get most of our tea in the United States. States is mostly from Charleston, nowhere else. Many other places where we get most of our tea are out of or imported from overseas. And this is the only tea business in the United States that's still in the business of producing tea tea is, I think, goes back to 1880, I think. And that's where I picked up a few more souvenirs, which is I also forgot at the market as well. Before I move on to the other souvenirs, that I also picked up book a book called "The Blacks," about the blacks in Charleston, about black history in Charleston, South Carolina. It says I got a book from book about the Black Wall Street when I was in D.C. and talks about black history from slavery all the way to the civil rights movement to the current times. It references a slave revolt in 1822, which our two guy had mentioned, uprising. And at the tea farm, I had got some souvenirs, such as, we also had samples of tea. But the souvenirs I got was, one is a bottle of syrup, which is caramel, which is salted caramel maple, which is from Vermont. Maple syrup, Vermont's finest salted caramel maple. It was voted as it was nominated as the 2023 flavor contest winner. And it's very good, rich, traditional syrup. I like the bottle. It looks old-fashioned looking as well. It almost looks like whiskey, but syrup, and I like the bottle and the vintage of it. I also picked up some saltwater taffy. I already started eating some of it already. But I do like taffy. It's got them different flavors. And that was the tea orchard we went to. We also visited a historic old oak tree that's been around for 400 years. It's very nice, big. And that was I remember what else did I do that day. Also visited the National Mall and bought a few clothing and clothes and dress socks. Dress socks. It was pretty much like the outlet mall they had in D.C. And I was on Halloween as well. The day I did my videos, my Halloween video, and house ate it for dinner. We had Old Charlie's, which has been once I had Old Charlie's. I don't eat there too often. And we used to have one in St. Louis, but most of them closed down. I actually had a past incident where I got sick when I was a toddler at Old Charlie's. So that's part of why I don't eat there too often. And that Friday was the last day. We ended up leaving Charleston, and we ended up visiting the state capitol. And that's where I picked up another souvenir of the carving of the Capitol with the nameplate of Charleston. And that was my souvenir. Most of my souvenirs I got there from Charleston, and we returned home, and it was a nice experience. I look forward to more trips. trips, and not too often do I really do videos about my traveling experiences, such as I didn't do one for Chicago, mainly because I didn't find really anything really historically significant to really talk about. And for Nashville, I just never really took time to do a video while I was in Nashville. I was just too very busy that day, and excuse me, it was also my birthday, so I did a lot of celebrating and a lot of visiting museums and attractions. So I didn't really have time to really do a video. So that's all I have to say I have about my trip in Charleston. It was a very nice experience. Look forward to another trip next time. And we may have my youth trip, may be planning another trip back to Chicago. So I may, depending if there's something that really stands out that I find interesting, I may do another video. I may see about vlogging, maybe doing like a travel vlog like some of the other YouTubers I see. I never really learned how to do that. Nothing wrong with learning how to try, of course. And that's all I have to say. That's another by Chase Pal. Stay tuned for the next video.